Hey guys, and welcome back to another week of astrology. Today we're going to be looking at the astrology of July 19th to the 26th, 2021. My name's David. I'm from Haunted Cerebral Astrology. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your support, liking, commenting, and subscribing. It all means a lot to me and it goes a super long way. Before I get into it, just a couple announcements. If you haven't seen it yet, I've been doing weekly electional astrology videos. I'm going to continue to do those. If you don't know what electional astrology is, it's like you use astrology to choose times and dates that are lucky or auspicious to do various ventures. And I have a bit of fun with it, and I kind of let you know what kind of astrology is coming up that you could use to do something with. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. It's in my video list on my YouTube. And then also my new website's going to be coming out. I think I'm going to be releasing it this week sometime or next. I'll be announcing that on Instagram when it's online. So otherwise, let's get right into it today. Try to get as quickly on board as possible because there is some stuff happening this week. Hold on, I just lost my. All right. So here we have the astrology. So going to do things a little bit different this week. I'm also going to try and include Monday for next week, July 26th, just because I'm noticing that, I'm usually doing the astrology on the Monday. And then it's usually around, in the morning or in the afternoon, and some of the transits have already happened. So I feel like I'm going to do 8 days in advance rather than 7 to try and make up for it. Anyway, so this week is a bit of a bigger deal than last week. And although there are some bigger transits, it's still a more manageable week than maybe anything we've had during eclipse season, although it's really going to be setting us up for next week and the last days of July, which will be a little bit more intense with this. So the sun's actually moving into Leo. Anyway, so the kind of the bigger things this week is, of course, the ingress of Venus into Virgo. And then that same day, the sun moves into Leo as well. So happy birthday to all the Leos out there. And we're going to be entering into the light dominant, but the light decreasing part of the year. So so we're going to start to notice by the end of Leo season that the light is really decreasing. Summer is coming to an end. And then the other kind of thing I wanted to point out was there's going to be that Aquarius full moon this week. And that's going to happen basically just as soon as the moon moves into Aquarius. So the sun, they'll be in the first degree of Aquarius and Leo, the sun in Leo, moon in Aquarius. And this is the first of 2 lunations in Aquarius. So there's going to be a blue moon that will be in, I guess that will be in August. So 2 full moons in Aquarius this year, shining as much light as possible onto the Aquarius parts of our life. So let's try and break that all down and see if we can make some sense of each of these transits and go through each one as slowly as possible, but also as quickly as possible, right? Okay, so, all right, let's start off with everything. So we're on, let's see, Monday. Wait a second. So we're on Monday, July 19th. So mostly it's a lunar day. There's going to be a few of these this week. So it's kind of a mix of big things and then these lunar days, which, are also important, but less intense. So the moon's just coming off that opposition to Uranus, and the moon is moving into this trine with Neptune, basically. And so it could be a sleepy start to the day on some level. I mean, I'm reading, by the way, if this is your first time tuning into my channel, I read the astrology from Berlin, Germany, but all you need to do is adjust the time to where you are, and you can read the transits from anywhere. They'll just be affecting in the same way. I'm just reading the background noise, but basically from this perspective, but you can just apply it to anywhere. So really, don't worry if I'm saying this is from the morning or the afternoon. It really is applicable to anybody. It's just the background noise. But because I'm from Berlin, Germany, it's going to be from that timing. Okay, so anyway, so the moon's trining to Neptune, so it could be a sleepy start to the day or wherever you are, kind of dreamy and everything. Maybe you're still like loving and feeling good about what was going on at the weekend. You don't really want that to end on some level. The moon is still in Scorpio. So although there's some vulnerability, there's also this kind of interesting support structure happening that the moon's kind of building into that trine with the sun. And then also, you know, technically it's still in a sign-based trine with Jupiter. So there is some, it's an interesting transit for moon this time through Scorpio, just because it's going to be getting some of that support after moving out of the harsher aspects with Saturn and Uranus. It's going to be feeling a little bit more enjoy. It's going to, or at least like the deepness of it will feel more comfortable on some level. Anyway, so, and then the moon basically moves into a square with Mars right after that. So, you know, Mars rules Scorpio. So it's kind of connecting with its Lord there, some reception, although it could be frustrating and maybe some setbacks on some level. Things are not going quite as fast as you want them to, or there's a kind of an offset between where you actually are and where you're trying to drive things, where you're trying to drive your story, where you're trying to drive your potential, where you're trying to drive your performativity. Could be a little bit off. So maybe, you know, you don't make a deadline on time or something like that, or it's just one of those Mondays, you know what I mean? Anyway, so then moving forward, then the moon makes a sextile to Pluto, you know, kind of maybe getting a grip on some of the dangers that we're seeing over the weekend. I don't know if anybody else noticed what was going on from the Sun-Pluto opposition, but, you know, with all the flooding here in Europe, and then there was tornadoes, I think, in Canada. There was also like more rioting. I think there was rioting in Thailand and things like that. And then also, you know, all the kind of like plans that the UK has with going fully, like everyone's just like kind of getting off of the COVID train, but like, are we really out of that yet? It's hard to say. So I think with the kind of Pluto sextile there, it's like, okay, are we getting a grip on that ourselves? Like, what are we going to do? What are we going to adjust to? So maybe we can get a better perspective on what kind of went down. Maybe some of the weird darkness that we saw over the weekend got more clear about. You know, maybe we were getting more information about, like, some of these Pluto transits I've seen really been connected to all the children being uncovered from the residential schools in Canada as well. So maybe this is kind of a way for us to kind of get more in touch with some of the feelings that we're having with some of those darker topics, not necessarily that one, but some of the maybe darker topics, or we're getting we connect with somebody who is going to like help us to make adjustments necessary for darker topics that we can maybe start to see on the horizon. And there's going to be that Mercury opposition to Pluto later in the week. So, and we're still coming off the Sun opposition. So there's something about what's going to go down in the winter of 2021 that's becoming more real. Anyway, so maybe dealing with the fear in like a more healthy, harmonizing, and supportive, or at least modifying manner. Okay, and then basically Moon then will square to Venus just before it leaves Scorpio. So something about that Venus-Mars conjunction is still kind of dragging on. Venus and Mars, although they're out of the engagement, really, they're still so close together. I would say like there's still something kind of dragging on from whatever last week was having a fresh start in relationships and missions that we're on, or like things that we're trying to accomplish or get at. And so maybe there's a challenge with some of the relationships from that whole thing. Maybe things are just not on the same page in that regard. Feelings might have been hurt on some level, or there might have been rejections. It's like it was maybe like last week, and in a way was like a combinations of rejections and then approvals at the same time in relationships. So with the moon making that square to Venus, it could be kind of reigniting that on some level. It has a bit of a needy vibe, maybe needs that are kind of more challenging to fulfill on some level. Venus is getting ready to leave Leo, so the vibe will be changing for what is going to fulfill us and give us and meet our desires on some levels. So, maybe you want to be held right now or touched or loved or enjoyed, but there's some not kind of a reciprocation on some level. Although it could be the opposite for other people. Like I said, it could have been a rejection combined with an attractions. So this is also just being in the middle of a plan in action on some level, and then not really enjoying it with all that solar energy in there. And then basically right after it, an hour later, the moon's going to make the trine to the sun. So this is, again, that's why I kind of bring this up. It's maybe there is some connection to our plan, connection to the track we're on, connection to the direction we're in. We can feel and we can see that things are going forward on some level. But, just because things are going forward doesn't mean that all of our needs are getting met in this moment right now. So we know what to do next. The plan is at least supporting us on some level and emotionally in some way, because the sun is still in a lunar sign. But our feelings are really deep right now. We're feeling more vulnerable than normal. And with that square, it's a sign-based square now to Mars, but Venus is, like I said, is kind of carrying over that conjunction. And so with the square there, it's like this weird kind of we're going towards what we're going towards, but there's something we want that's not really coming in for us at the same time. So even if the nourishment is not what we want right now, we know at least we're going somewhere. So maybe at some point those needs get met, but at this time, maybe they're not. And then the kind of last thing happening on Monday is that the moon moves into Sagittarius. So that just leads us into Tuesday. So as soon as the moon moves into Sagittarius on Tuesday, it enters into that square with Jupiter. So there's a kind of forcefulness to any growth potential that may have been left, that's still kind of left over, that is left from Jupiter. Jupiter is in those final minutes of Pisces as it retrogrades back into Aquarius. So there's only so much more that Jupiter is going to be able to give us while still in its domicile before moving back to kind of prop up Saturn in Aquarius. So this might be realizing on some level that the growth is not coming yet. This is also seeing that there could be more to come, but it's not quite there yet. There could be some grief inducing of some level, or at least having some sort of regrets about not doing enough, not being enough on some level, realizing that perhaps what you were able to do was not enough for others or for yourself on some level. Maybe you didn't take advantage of all that expansiveness. There was maybe an over optimistic feeling that these growth potentials and this expansiveness is going to stick around for forever, right? But this is maybe coming to realize on some level that, oh, maybe it's not forever. And it's okay, it's totally okay that maybe we didn't take advantage of all those things, but there's still this feeling there. We can't just not have feelings, right? So this is also coming maybe to terms with the bar that we've set already, which Jupiter and Pisces, maybe we've set this bar very high, coming to believe that we can accomplish all the things and all the tasks on our table that we've kind of left for commitments for ourselves, thinking that there's enough resources to do all those things. But maybe now the ability to jump that bar that's now so high is coming to an end on some level, or we're starting to realize that we're not going to be able to make that jump as often as we thought we could. And now we're feeling that. So can we even keep up with things now that there's starting to be a decreasing of that growth potential? And as well, the light is decreasing now. So we're getting those flavors of what the winter is going to be about too. Again, which is kind of what I was leading up to last week with the Sun-Pluto opposition too. And some of the transits this week are going to be about that as well. Just kind of coming to realize that, sure, we're in the middle of summer now, but winter's on the horizon, right? So, yeah, and I think Moon is now in Jupiter's sign, and Jupiter is just about to move back into Aquarius. So there's this kind of like expectation of things starting to turn back on some level, maybe to where they were in 2020. Personally, and I know some other astrologers do too, think this has to do with a lot of some of the new lowering restrictions for COVID, and thinking that, you know, all the news and all the politicians are like, oh, okay, well, now it's all over. But it's like, is it really? I don't know. And it could be that this is maybe us on the moon represents the common people on some level. So maybe we on an individual basis are starting to come to terms with like, okay, is it really over? Or what are we going back to? And what is the reality of that? So how are we going to deal with that? Although there is maybe some fear about that, Jupiter is also maybe exaggerating things a little bit too. So if there are problems coming up, just remember that it's Jupiter right now. It's in retrograde. It's not really working the way it's supposed to be normally working. Sure, it's in domicile, but that just might mean that it's exaggerating things. So how can we get back in touch with our expectations versus our reality and learn to let go of what is no longer necessary? So get a feeling for the bigger picture, and then try to see if it's matching up with where you are today. So sometimes the way I do that is just, make lists of lists kind of thing, just like list your resources, list what you're doing, and see how those match up kind of thing. And then that's kind of it until Mercury perfects the sextile to Uranus, which takes place later in the day, still in the morning here, but wherever you are, it's going to be connecting to Uranus there. So it could be interesting. It could be an interesting day, and it could be an interesting week for innovations, releasing of a website, for instance, my website, for instance, or technologies and communications on some level. So there could be new ways of innovating and also refining and also making modifications to how we want to use technologies to become more efficient with them. This is really the only real big thing going on through this day. So other than the moon making the conjunction to the nodes, which, is kind of decreasing things on some level, even though it is an interesting day to innovate, the use of tech to do something interesting, it's also maybe a bit of a downer day. It's a bit of a loner day, a day to contemplate, to consider. South node is about draining, decreasing, detaching, and detangling. So what is it that we're letting go of right now, realizing that's not working? It's very related to the moon Jupiter square as well. So what's off according to what our expectations are versus where we really are. This could be a way of figuring out the best way to consolidate what we have and what we don't. Very much a transit about rethinking an idea, project, direction, moving it more to like the essentials, to the efficient, to the focused on the necessities, with that like Cancer lunar combinations. There's something about working with things that are about meeting needs rather than just trying to get pleasure out of everything. So yeah, becoming more essential. And like asking yourselves, like, is this going to work or is this not going to work? If it works, then do it. If it doesn't work, let it go. That's kind of the vibe. And then once the moon moves past the south node, of course, it makes the sextile to Saturn, which for me, I think just reinforces what I was just saying about, what does work, what doesn't work. We have to do what works. And this is being able to make a necessary modification to avoid a bigger problem, And with the moon being in this Jupiter sign, it's like maybe on some level we have a feeling of optimism about things, and we feel like we can see where things are going. And this, we could use that to our advantage now, that if we can see where things are going now, rather than just like thinking it's all going to work out according to plan, maybe make some of the modifications that will ensure that at least whatever plan we're working towards, or whatever kind of bigger picture, or like whatever kind of thing we're trying to redeem from our past that really was kind of setting us back on some level, maybe we can make those adjustments now to continue on that path, continue towards some sort of recovery. So yeah, like I said, making necessary modifications to perhaps avoid bigger problems. So that's it for Tuesday. Let's move into Wednesday because the moon just keeps going through Sagittarius anyway. So the next day is there's just 2 lunar transits really. On Wednesday, July 21st. It's kind of a funny day, not really much going on, pretty much just carrying over the vibes from the day before on some level. The moon just continues through Sag. First thing it does is it makes the square to Neptune, I think. Yeah, like basically not much goes on until then. So it makes that square to Neptune. Okay, maybe the fantasy is not all cracked up to be. And then it makes this trine to Mars. So there's something fun and maybe potentially dangerous that could be giving us a kick right now. I mean, with the moon coming out of that decreasing kind of otherworldliness connection to first the south node and then to Neptune. And, you know, in some levels, whenever there's a connection to Saturn, there's this contemplativeness, this melancholy that comes in. So maybe there's a detachment. Maybe we made some modification to detach on some level with that aspect to Saturn. So now that we've like detached ourselves from the problems of the world, there may be a more of a inclination to do something risky, right? So now with that trine to Mars, it's like, oh, maybe I can get away with this. You know what I mean? So you know, maybe I can get a kick that I'm looking for. So just be careful with this one. I think it's like, even though it is a trine, yes, it's supportive. Yes, it's good. I think when it's connecting after these last transits or whatever, it could be like we're making an excuse to do something maybe we might regret later. So, you know, use your experience on this. How will this help you to go back on, you know, will this help you, or will this like make you go back on, you know, is this a 2 steps back, or is this a potential to do 1 step forward right here? You know, if you indulge in reckless behavior now, how will that really help you in the long term? This is, you know, Sagittarius is a sign associated on some level with like maverickness and hedonism and kind of a bit of you know, fuck it vibes. So because like I'm just going to do what I want to do because I need to be free. I need to do something that gets me a good perspective on my life, you know, get back to the good feelings and always be happy and positive and things like that. So with Mars connection there, it's like maybe you'll have that opportunity to indulge in something reckless like that, to do something more maverick, to do something against maybe your principles right now. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Maybe that's what you want to do. You know, you all have free choice in this matter. But, you know, on the other hand, this could be also making a right decision to cut a tie on some level, to sever yourself from danger. Maybe to go back on what you were feeling yesterday might help you to connect with what's the right thing to do for you in this situation. There's likely a danger of losing all that you've gained. So just check with that. You know, maybe you have to use this energy to help yourself like cut a tie. Just be conscious of it. See what the situation that comes up for you, and just remember that there's that potential for doing something that may not go according to your principles. Okay, and that's it really for Wednesday. So let's go into Thursday. So just before the moon leaves Sagittarius, makes that trine to Venus. So things are starting to get a bit serious because the moon is getting ready to go into Capricorn. There's like an expectation of things changing on some level. So this is like, okay, there is some pleasure to being reckless, but what about the morning after? On the other side, it's like maybe you did the right thing instead. Like maybe you cut the tie, maybe you made the rejection, that you had that good flow between, you know, there was an acceptance to a rejection on some level. So maybe cutting the tie hurts at first, but right away you're already seeing the benefits on some level. There's maybe respect that comes from voicing our wants and needs openly and honestly. And then like literally an hour later, the moon moves into Cap and makes that sextile to Jupiter. So just a, you know, energy shift with the moon moving into Capricorn. It's kind of like waking up in the middle of the night and maybe realizing the consequences to some risky behavior, or it's feeling a little bit melancholic about a decision not pursued to not pursue a desire on some level. So, you know, you prevented yourself from getting some sort of desire met. And that can sometimes come with a melancholy. You're like, oh, wow, you know, I should have done that. I should have done that. Or, you know, life is too short, you know, YOLO kind of thing. But I didn't do it because I'm a good person, or like I'm so, you know, you're starting to kind of be hard on yourself for not doing something just because it felt good. But, you know, at the same time, well, as soon as it makes that sextile to Jupiter, at the same time, it's like, you know, it's good, you know, it was the right thing to do, but you don't necessarily feel that great because, you know, the moon is in its fall there. So there is that kind of like, you know, running into the pitfalls of our emotions on some level. Oh, sorry, it's in detriment. So it's like our feelings are just not in a place that makes sense to us because we have to kind of detach ourselves a bit from the feelings. And so, yeah, it's a bit maybe melancholic about that, but at least not feeling like maybe you made the wrong decision, right? So there's a sense of satisfaction that comes from that. And with that sextile to Jupiter, there's that like supportive, harmonizing, like rebalancing of things. So maybe what will help the most here is doing what needs to be done and let go of bad feelings. You know, not to say that you don't want to just not have feelings, but maybe put them where they need to be put. You know, if you are part of any kind of support group where you can share your feelings openly, if you're going to therapy, or if you have, if you journal, if you have a place where you can put your feelings, then do that there, but maybe keep them out of whatever work needs to be done now. So the point is to like, you know, do the job now, do what needs to be done. It will be the right thing to do. It's not about using our emotions right now. It's about getting things done. You know, what's your job? Do your job. It's not about you, but you are responsible for your job. So just think about that. And then just to talk a little bit more about that sextile to Jupiter, you know, maybe in a way, if you did do some reckless behaviors from the night before, or whatever, or from the day before, wherever you are, whenever that transits with Mars were going on, maybe you can get away with it with that sextile to Jupiter, but also maybe not. So maybe not getting away with it with whatever you were trying to get away with is also helping you, because sometimes it's like, you know, for instance, this year I've gotten a couple tickets on here in Berlin. There's the metro, and you pay for your tickets and then you stamp them and then you ride the train. But sometimes you can get away with not buying the tickets, or sometimes you forget about getting the tickets or whatever. Or maybe you don't get the ticket, you get the ticket because they have an app, and it's like maybe you buy the ticket when you get on the train, but then you got caught doing that. You're not supposed to do that, right? So there may have been like you getting a ticket, and after months of maybe riding for free, for instance. So maybe it bites, but let's be honest, you're paying back for what you take advantage of. So this is kind of karma at work, right? Like, so just don't get too upset over it if that's the case. On the other side, this could be also getting a reward for doing the right thing. Jupiter is just about to leave Pisces. So this is one of Jupiter's last chances to give generously. I think it's it's the last supportive aspect that Jupiter makes to the moon or any other planet before leaving Pisces. The only other transit that's going to go on is moon conjoining with Jupiter. So, you know, use it while it's still there. So yeah, and then the next thing kind of this is kind of maybe one of the bigger transits for the week is that Venus moves into Virgo. So of course it loses dignity, and it's also the first of the planets that's going to be leaving Leo, because now we're going to have the Sun move into Leo, and then Mercury move into Leo, and Mars is also still in Leo. So Venus is kind of now at the front of the line. Before it was Mars all the way. Remember, if we saw through all the weeks before, all the months before, it was always Mars kind of at the periphery, being the leader in all the planets, like coming forward in the zodiac. But now Venus has come ahead, right? So Venus is, although losing dignity, Venus goes directly opposite Jupiter, like right away. So there could be something really big in relationships that goes down. It's kind of cool in a way also because Venus's ingress reactivates also this trine to the moon that it had there in Leo. But then as soon as it goes into Virgo, it reactivates that trine to the moon. Sure, it's a separating trine, but it reactivates it. So all of a sudden, so maybe we feel kind of good about what we're getting right now. So the moon is really getting a double dose of good vibes. You see from both the benefics, it's getting that it's separating, of course, it's separating, but it's carrying them with it now. And it's got that sextile from Jupiter, trine from Venus. This could be really good for relationships, for something erotic events, for something getting pleasure out of our needs being met or not being met, just doing the right thing and feeling good about it, doing the work that needs to be done, getting a lot out of the work that we're doing with that Capricorn situation, or just like being able to have support in order to put our feelings aside for the time being so that we can do what needs to be done. So technically, Venus in Virgo also is not that fun. I mean, Venus is now in its fall, but there is a chance to focus right now. Resources for having fun and doing fun things is limited net right now, but maybe that's okay. There's plenty of fun things to do without having to drain our bank accounts too, right? So this could be like, although Venus is in a limited position, maybe we're lower on our resources right now, but maybe we find new ways of enjoying ourselves without having to pay for everything all the time. And so with that opposition to Jupiter, there is still a lot available to us right now. Maybe it's not exactly what you want, but you can get more specific about it. Venus being a bit more limited in the resources it can get right now doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bad thing. I mean, Venus is limited, sure, but maybe we know exactly what we're looking for right now. And Jupiter's there to be like, hey, this is what you want. This is the thing this is the thing that you're looking for right now. So this is also turning something maybe into something that's quite humble into something maybe incredible on some level too, or turning something that maybe it's also like getting something that's more formal and more executive with that Virgo with Venus being in Virgo. It's like getting into something more executive, something more detailed, something more customized. And with Mercury still in the moon's sign, there's something about like Mercury, which rules over Virgo. There's something about like something very personal and nurturing, something we're going to use for a long time that has something to do with tradition, that has something to do with something to do with the family on some level, and then something to do with tradition, something to do with being responsible and being somebody who can keep commitments with the moon in Capricorn there too. So, the opposition is also lasting throughout the day. So although Venus is in its fall, because of the connection to Jupiter for the next few days, I think it goes on till for the next 3 days even. Hold on, what do my notes say? Yeah, till the end of the week, basically, Venus is going to be still engaging with the opposition to Jupiter. So it is still a chance to feel pretty positive about things. At least to get maybe some of the things that we can have fun with kind of met, some of the needs that we need to have fun, just to have a good time right now, those can still be somewhat met on some level. So, because once the opposition ends on Sunday into next week, Venus will be alone in its fall, right? So this is like, you got what you need and want, but like, it's not really worth hyping it all up. Don't make such a big deal out of it. Just enjoy what's still around and what you're getting, and try to be specific about it. Don't just be overarching. Try to be more technical, be more specific, because otherwise you might get something, and sure, in the moment it might be like, wow, this is amazing. You like tell everybody how amazing it is, but then it's like, okay, well, now what? It's like, okay, well, great, you got this thing, but what is it? All right, and then later in that day, the next big thing of the week, they all happen in that one day actually, is the sun moves into Leo. So happy Leo season. Happy birthday to all the Leos, myself included. So my birthday will be soon as well. So thank you from myself. So yeah, Sun is in domicile. Sun is able now to give light, life, purpose, spirit, consciousness, awareness, right? So the light has the sun has all the resources it needs to do its best job, right? Finally, the sun is able also to oppose Saturn in domicile. The sun has the resources to be the classic opposition, and Sun and Saturn are actually natural opposites. So now the sun has the resources to be the opposite to Saturn that it needs to be right now, and to also deal with the Uranus and Taurus square. So maybe this is this is going to be the vitality that we need in order to deal with the biggest challenges in our lives and in the world right now. So it's like being okay with knowing that it's time to shine. It's time to shine with all you've been challenged with, been limited by, been let down by. Sure, it's not really like a winning moment on some level, but it's also at least a time to show your merit. Showing what you have and letting it be seen and is going to boost things up too. It's going to boost others around you. It's going to make you feel better about where you're going and what you're doing. So to give it more life, shine that light on where you are, grow your garden, and that's where your life is going to grow, right? So water where you are, shine the light on where you are, and give it that possibility to transcend above some of the darkness and the decay of that Saturnian impermanence. So maybe to do something more compassionate and noble too, to become a leader, to step into the light, to show others that you have that courage in order to meet some challenges right now. This is going to require a great deal of courage, but I think with the sun in Leo, it's going to be the energy to know that you can do it, to face some things that you're maybe more uncomfortable with. It doesn't mean there's going to be no other opportunity, but now it's time to maybe commitments too. So if you've made commitments, now with the sun in Leo, you have that energy to keep those commitments. Literally, it's a time to shine. And some of the other notes, I thought it was interesting to point out, like, this is also the first time that with Saturn in Aquarius, Sun is in Leo, and this hasn't happened in nearly 30 years. So the last time that this happened would have been in the early 90s. So I just put down some mundane notes about what was going on in 1991 to 1993 when Saturn was in Aquarius and the Sun was in Leo. So in 1991, we had the dissolution of Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union, as well as the singing revolution in Lithuania, which, if you don't know about that, it was like a massacre made by Russian tanks, I think, and soldiers on civilians who were protesting Russia's occupation of Lithuania, even post the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And then in 1992, we had the dissolution of Czechoslovakia, and then the North American Free Trade Agreement was made. So these are like massive things that have to do with like, society and potentiality in the future and where things are going in the insider-outsider paradigm with peoples and beliefs and things. And then also like where we're standing our ground and where we're able to see the separations between things, to see where we stand and where others stand, to be able to divide things appropriately. Of course, it's not going to come without drama, right? But, and then in 1993, we finally, with the final end of Saturn in Aquarius, we have Russia completes removing its troops from Lithuania. And this, even though maybe it sounds like something you've never heard of before, but really this was like the kind of official ending of the Russia's involvement in the Cold War, kind of. So once Russia completely removed its troops from the Baltics, this was when it kind of moved back into what we now know as the Russian Federation. So actually, that whole Saturn transit back in the early 90s had so much to do with the end of the Cold War. And so what does that mean to now? Like, what does that mean? What is ending? What is beginning now? What is being set apart? What is being kind of able to have the strength it needs to do something different, to do something to take us towards, to take a light into the darkness and to go forward towards somewhere where we don't know where it's going, right? So this is a big change part, especially this year after the Saturn Jupiter conjunction. It's such a big massive reorganizing of things and restructuring of this world. Anyway, so that's Sun in Leo, and let's take that into Friday. So first thing that happens on Friday. So Friday's another kind of just lunar day. It's just a bunch of lunar transits, but so I'll try and just break this down pretty quickly. So first things first, we have the moon making the trine to Uranus. So maybe in some way, is there a way in which our resourcefulness is benefiting from the instability of things, or is there a way of taking a risk to innovate with something that will bring more efficiency, it will bring more will we be able to get all the work we want to get done and be more resourceful with things and get our goals and move towards our goals through some of the instability, some of the innovations that have to do with things that we thought were stable but no longer are stable. And then Moon makes an opposition to Mercury. And, is our thinking clear? Are we being too distant? Is there a way to say something meaningful right now? And then the moon makes a sextile to Neptune. And sure, maybe reality doesn't totally live up to the fantasy, but maybe that's okay. We can come to terms with that. Can we do something to make a rebalancing adjustment to our dreams, to our visions, to our fantasies? And then lastly, the moon makes that conjunction to Pluto. So perhaps the darkness comes a little bit closer to home, maybe too close for comfort, with the moon still in its detriment in Capricorn. But we can recognize it. We can get in touch with it. We can integrate. We can disseminate whatever that darkness has to do, whatever that fear of what the winter holds has to be about. So we can integrate that with what's happening and where we are now. So that's it for Friday, because the moon just kind of goes through Capricorn and then goes right into Aquarius Saturday early morning. And actually, this is like that night, Friday into Saturday, that's the night of the full moon. And as soon as the moon goes into Aquarius, full moon vibes are in effect, right? So I'm just going to talk about the full moon now. So we got that full moon in Aquarius. So actually, this is full moon number 1. There's going to be a second full moon, and that will be in August. So that will be the blue moon. So, this is lighting up the Aquarius part of our lives twice. It's a culmination to the Aquarius story. Where are things climaxing and peaking? This is important because the light is shining on Saturn too. And what does that mean? What does that mean to us individually as well as collectively? Where is Aquarius in your chart? This is going to need extra attention now. Another important thing to note about this full moon is that the moon's also in that. It's not in an exact 3-degree adherence adherence conjunction, which is within 3 degrees to Saturn, but the moon moves 13 degrees per day. So even though it's not like within that 3-degree range, the moon's going to make a 0-degree conjunction, a bodily union with Saturn within that same day. So technically the moon is in applying conjunction with Saturn. So the full moon is in applying conjunction with Saturn. So it's really important because that means that the moon is reactivating the Saturn-Uranus square tomorrow, but basically already. So, where are you at now? Where are others at now? Where do you fit into this picture of progress? Or where do you not fit into the plans or progresses or potentialities that Aquarius is all about? Maybe you don't fit in, but that's okay. Or maybe you do. And so maybe just go with it. Just keep going. And so, do what works for you. Do what is already a part of your direction. Sun is in Leo, so the story is about doing what's true. Follow your truth. It may be a challenge now, but it's the right thing to do. There's a lot of hot and cold energy. This is like the combinations needed for tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. So, there's a lot of competition about that. There's a lot of tension and pulling between things and things going from one side to the other. sides being taken in general. So, this could be a good thing. It could be a good thing on some levels, and it could be also really challenging on other levels. So, follow the truth. The truth is going to lead you to somewhere authentic. And I think right now we really have to come to terms with our authenticity now that the sun is in Leo, because if we think we can live inauthentically for very long, it's not going to work. I can tell you from experience of being burnt out and like wearing myself out to do so much work that was really inauthentic to me. It just exhausts you. So you really have to get in touch with, what are you doing that is most true to you? So get in touch with that. You got to follow that as much as possible. I'm not saying like quit your job and blah, 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 but I'm just saying like, steer your ship towards a shore of authenticity. And right now there's the energy to do that. So, and in a way, I think also, just with all this Aquarian energy and with Saturn in retrograde there, and this double full moon happening there, there's this kind of view of the future that has a very like William Gibson cyberpunk dystopia vibe to it. Like if you've ever read what's that cyberpunk book? Anyway, so William Gibson, if you've the whole like Sprawl series, if you've ever read that, which really influenced a lot of cyberpunk. I mean, he came up with the term. So much dystopic views right now. What is going on in technology and in the future, and in corporations and politics and governments and identity politics and all these things that are like changing about the way that we're seeing the world, and the way that some of us are taking all these sides, and who we are and who we believe we are, who we realize we don't even know who we are. And there's so much about what was being written about as the future in the past, which is now the present, right? So what is Saturn really revealing to us in that narrative? What is Uranus twisting and recontextualizing too? Things that we thought were stable, what we thought were going to stay the same, are just breaking apart, falling apart. So, think about I just read in the news the other day that Greenland decided to stop doing all oil exploration in Greenland. Like, it means that Greenland's still going to have to be dependent on Denmark for, I think, financial security and things like that, because Denmark owns or Greenland's part of Denmark, and there's money that they pay to keep the economy going there, because there's really not a lot of economy. And so the whole like oil thing was meant to so that Greenland could become more independent. But Greenland has decided to not do that because they're like, the environmental risks are not worth it, right? So that to me is very much all these vibes. That's all these vibes are about. So, what about the future matters? And why does the present feel so futuristic and so uncanny? Something very uncanny, I think, is on the horizon, revealing, it's culminating with those double full moons in Aquarius. And this is realizing that all the work we've done to meet those horizons may not be enough to face some of those challenges. There's still a lot of work to be done. And maybe it's about going back to basics. We need to get stronger to take on whatever final boss, hypothetically speaking, or whatever next challenge we need to do in the story that we're on. Like I used to play a lot of role-playing game, like RPGs, and there's this term called grinding, where in the RPG you keep repeating a really high XP challenge over and over again. Usually it's somewhere close to where you can like heal or regenerate on some level. So you just stay there for a long time and keep getting experience points, so that when you go to that next challenge, you can at least face it with as much resource and strength as possible. But yeah, because that's such an individual task, it's really unclear if like this is where the group kind of comes in or not. This is maybe more about us doing something that's a bit more isolated, with that conjunction to Saturn. There's something about there's something isolating going on, something with a lot of cold and open air, distant and cold air. So it could be a solitary face-off in some way, something we have to go alone. But there's also something to be gained. It just means that we have to commit to some of the hazards of this uncanniness, to the here and now, as well as the future. There's opportunities as well when there's risks involved. We just have to know, are the risks worth taking? And just like what Greenland said. They said, no, the risks were not worth taking. So yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, the moon's going to go twice here. So there really is something about this, like doing it over and over again. Sun is in Leo now. It's going to be reactivating Saturn and Uranus. Mercury moves into Leo soon too. So it's also going to be activating Saturn and Uranus. This is preparing for that big boss battle, right? So Jupiter is just about to go back into Aquarius too. So there's some big help coming. There's some big justice coming. For the next full moon, especially because by the next one, Jupiter will be in Aquarius. But for now, it's a solo fight. All right. So then the next thing that happens that day really is we get that trine from Mercury to Neptune. So I kind of just wrote down here that, the mind may have like an immersive experience of some kind. Maybe you go to the movie theater, maybe you do something mind-bending and entertaining and deep. You do something totally ethereal and you put your whole mind into it. But maybe we're not really seeing things totally clear right now. Maybe just believing something beyond what we're seeing, some projection of some kind is involved, but that's okay. I mean, we have to be a bit delusional as well to take risks, right? So this is the full moon, and this is also a full moon, so it's maybe about meeting challenges. This is helping, because it's helping because we're crazy enough to meet some of these crazy challenges. We're crazy enough to do things that require a bit of craziness, basically. All right, and that's it, I think, for Saturday, other than, of course, the moon makes that conjunction to Saturn, but I basically already talked about that. So let's just go into Sunday. So first thing first, again, Sunday is also just kind of this lunar day. I mean, the next 2 days are really just lunar days. I mean, except for that opposition that Mercury makes to Pluto, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But most of the next 2 days are really just lunar days, kind of coming towards what's going to go on next week. But yeah, first thing first, moon makes a square to Uranus. I mean, whatever this is, I don't think it's going to be unexpected. Things are just off, a little bit crazy and intense right now. I think if there is some upset to something from this, there may just be no other way around it, really. So this could be like, I mean, if you are here in Germany and you maybe with that connection to Neptune that Mercury made, and maybe immersing yourself in some deep and ethereal experience, it may be that moon connection to Uranus is just like sets off your whole routine. Maybe you just stay out way, way, way too late. You know what I mean? But, I think whatever it is, it's not going to be unexpected. And I think there's this kind of like meeting of some kind of, how can I say, like uncompromising challenge or disruption. But sometimes the only way through is, the only way around, is through. So maybe we just have to go through this right now. Yeah, and then basically Sunday, the only other thing going on as the moon goes through Aquarius is that opposition that Mercury makes to Pluto. So yeah, kind of serious on some level, but at least things are being figured out. And I don't think whatever it is going to be unexpected. I think Sunday's going to be full of it's going to be full of expected problems, basically. So, it's kind of serious, but at least we're figuring something out. We're speaking about it. We're speaking about it compassionately on some level with the moon, and with Mercury being in a moon sign. Moon may be in a distant place, but on some level we have a bit more openness to being compassionate, even if, the moon is an aversion to Mercury. So although it can't really know what resources it needs right away to say the words that need to be said, we at least know that we're feeling something needs to be said. So there's a way of like trying to figure something out. And I think that if there is some kind of upset to whatever conversation or exchange is going on, there really isn't any kind of other way around it. And, maybe we kind of know what what conversation doesn't need to be stepped in, what does not need to be said, and being on some level more cautious with exchanges, and maybe coming to terms with what is to come again in the winter 2021 winter, 2021, 2022 winter. And so this might be the mind catching up with the knowledge of that darkness on the horizon. So I think this is really for me, I think a lot of the astrology, although there's like a bit of wildness going on, and I think next week's going to be intense too. I think, it is the summer still. The sun is now in Leo. There's resources to enjoy ourselves, to have the energy to pursue make some achievements happen, to follow our ambitions on some level. So I think really now it's the time to enjoy yourself. So do what you can to have a good time, and get as much vitamin D as you can, get as much sunshine as you can, get all their shit together. But at the same time, do what needs to be done so you can get your shit together, because you're going to need that all to put together for the winter. And I think with Mercury in Cancer, that's in a way helping us to figure that out, and seeing on the distance what the winter holds again, and this time from a place of wanting to figure something out. So that's it for Sunday. So let me just talk about Monday now. Like I said, it's also kind of just like a lunar day. So first thing first is that the moon makes that opposition to Mars just before going into Pisces. So maybe the tables turn a little bit. This could also just be a reality check, or meeting a foe, or getting your toe stubbed on some level, or stepping on someone's toes. We're chasing our dreams now, going at challenges, but dreams and challenges have dangers too, right? So just watch your step. Anyway, and then the moon goes into Pisces, makes that conjunction to Jupiter. This is the last taste of Jupiter in Pisces. It's up close and personal now. And what is Jupiter giving us before it leaves its domicile? This is the last chance for growth from that Jupiter Pisces perspective, where if you have Pisces in your chart for the remainder of 2021. Jupiter is going to go back into Aquarius until the end of the year. So after this, it's about consolidation and dealing with the Aquarius dilemma. Sure, there's still going to be growth on some level, there'll be expansions made, because Jupiter doesn't necessarily have bad dignity in Aquarius, but Jupiter is going to be doing Saturn things. It's not going to be doing Jupiter things. So it's just not the same. It's not going to be the same. It's about dealing with things and propping up things for the future, right? So being the support necessary to make the foundations we need to depend on that part of our lives. Like Aquarius is a fixed sign, solid sign. So at some point, once the changes are all done there, it needs to be left alone. It needs to work on its own. So, yeah. And then moon then makes an opposition to Venus. So maybe seeing where the things that you bought, or that you focused on, that you figured out, that you got that very specific thing you needed, where that can be nurtured a bit, seeing how, what was focused on was actually worth it, even if there's a feeling a little bit of did I really need to put all that money into that thing? But maybe you just needed it, so just go with it. And then the last thing that I really wanted to point out is that the moon then makes the square to the nodes. So let's see. So moon will square the nodes. And yeah. So, moon's moving towards the north node. Things are increasing again. Things are increasing. Even though the moon is in its waning phase. So maybe bodily, physically, vitality wise, we are decreasing, or whatever thing that we started with the Cancer new moon, now it's past that point of culmination. Now it's a point of consolidating, of refining, of becoming more mature about it, and being more realistic about it. But at the same time, the moon's moving towards that North Node. So there's just more stuff, events, and circumstances increasing too. So, things are just going to be starting to get more hectic as we get up to the last weeks of July. The last weeks of July are going to be pretty similar to the first weeks, but instead from a Mars perspective, it's going to be from the solar perspective, from the sun, because the sun is going to be making those activations of Saturn and Uranus. So there'll be more of an even pace, maybe giving what we can get, one thing at a time kind of thing, but no breaks. So, and then that's kind of it for Monday. And yeah, that's it for the astrology this week. So let's just close this up. Just to talk a little bit about next week. So next week is going to be more intense than the last 2 weeks. We got Mercury following closely behind the sun, moving into Leo. We got Jupiter going back into Aquarius. That's pretty big. And then Jupiter-Mars opposition right away as Mars moves into Virgo. And then Mercury's going to make a superior conjunction with the sun. So Cazimi, that's great. I think that's going to be cool. Cazimi in Leo. That's going to be really cool. So that's probably the most positive thing for next week. I might do some of my elections based on that. And then Mercury makes an opposition to Saturn before the sun does after the Cazimi. So Mercury activates before the sun, Saturn and Uranus square, with the sun closely following behind. And really, it's more about the sun's opposition than Mercury's. But with Mercury kind of setting that things up, it's like, our mind is now ahead of what we're doing. So that's it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much always for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you can share this video with someone you think is going to help them, please pass it on. If you want to book a consultation with me, all the information is down below. And once my new website's up, I will let you guys all know, probably on Instagram, and I'll let you know in the forthcoming forecasts, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, everyone. Take care this week and keep coming back. Bye for now.